everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe, alongside Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright, who at this point is probably a little bit better than kicker Nick Folk after the game he had
Like
yesterday.
the hair, Jenna.
Thank
Little
you.
pulled back ponytail.
I know you guys don't have multiple options on a daily basis, but I do, and I'm going to exercise.
That's how I wore it when I had long hair.
Did you?
Pulled back in a ponytail.
I'll give you a penny for a picture. All right, great game last night. Let's start there. And what was dubbed a must-win for the Patriots did just that. Beating the Bucs in a defensive struggle, 19-14. Tom Brady turned the ball over twice, but threw for over 300 yards and a touchdown, tying the record for quarterback wins with 186. A lot of storylines in this one, which we'll get to, but after the game, Brady credited the defense for the win.
Yeah, they played a great game. They really kept us in it all night. I wish we could have scored more points offensively, but defense really held their own. And, we battled, just couldn't get enough done to ultimately get the ball in the end zone. But glad we won.
Nick, a win is a win is a win, and standings don't care how you win. But should the Patriots feel good after a win like this last night?
They should feel good because they won, and they had to win that game to stay alive for a bye. And we talked yesterday about how important it is for not just New England, but any team that wants to make it to the Super Bowl to get a bye. So you're right. Like, nobody cares about style points in the standings. And then in between 3 and 2 and 2 and 3 is enormous.
It's big.
So, yes, they should feel good that they got the win, but they should not feel good about how they played. Tom Brady can say, oh, they're crediting the defense. I mean, okay, the defense gave up 400 yards again. The defense, for the 5th straight game, gave up 300 yards passing. That's been done prior to last night, precisely. 0 times in NFL history has a team given up 5 straight 300-yard passing games at any point in the season, much less to start a season. And while Brady can say the defense played better, the defense wasn't out there making Nick Folk miss kicks.
Yes.
The defense wasn't out there making Dirk Cutter make some inexplicable game management decisions. The defense was not out there making Jameis Winston overshoot Deshaun Jackson on what is an easy touchdown, what Deshaun Jackson's made his career out of to start the second half. So they should feel good they won. They should not feel good about how they played.
No, you can't feel good if you're New England. And I'm going to look at the offense. Their offense going against a Tampa Bay defense that was depleted. Both their inside linebackers, Quan Alexander, and Levante David out, problems with their safeties, injuries there. They had 3 or 4 starters out of the game. Lost their other starter, was replacing them early in the football game. And when you could only score 19 points, I mean, they're very fortunate to win this game. Now, the reason why I can be critical of New England is because the standard that they set, not what I think and not my expectations, but their expectations. The penalties, the idiotic decisions, late hits on the quarterback, late in the first half. They give him another opportunity to throw the ball to the end zone with 2 late hits on Jameis. The way they play football, the first half of the game, I was like, is this Bill Belichick? Like, yeah, this is New England, owned by Kraft. Brady's still the quarterback. But the fundamentals of this New England team are some of the worst fundamentals I've seen on a Belichick team since Brady's been there. Because that's most of the time when we judge them. So not a good look for New England. Offensive line, still not great. Can't establish a consistent running game. And I'm starting to lean a little bit towards Nick, and not because of Tom Brady's age, but I know quarterbacks well enough. There's not one quarterback, and I know the greatest of the greats, not one ever admitted, man, you know something, I like to get hit. And Tom Brady continues to be hit. Week after week after week. I think this is the 8th game in a row they've given up multiple sacks. So if they're going to be successful, they're going to have Tom Brady upright and keep the pressure off of him. But this team, you know what they look like? They looked a lot like Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, like being the only marquee player. Like, where would New England be without Tom Brady?
And just to amplify in case, because if you're watching right now, the odds are you didn't stay up for the entire game. You might have fallen asleep. Chris's point on mental errors, at the end of the first half, Tampa Bay's essentially in a give-up drive.
Yes.
There's a roughing the passer penalty that allows them to throw a Hail Mary. on the Hail Mary, there's another roughing the passer penalty that allows them to try one of the first of 3 missed field goals. Somehow, that wasn't even. Neither of those were the most un-Bill Belichick-like plays from the defense. Special teams, 4th and 3, they jump off sides. That's a turnover. Yes. You're getting the ball back. So if you didn't see it, there were multiple things that didn't look like a Bill Belichick team.
And if you're talking about being satisfied that the Patriots won and just get out of it, I don't even think they should have won. When you say there are 9 points left on the board, and I know it's not the sexiest topic to talk about, a kicker and field goals and all of it, but Nick Folk has basically, he lost that game for them. 3 field goals missed. I understand how the Patriots played. This is coming off last week where Nick Folk also had a tough. I find it very hard and answer this if you can. Are you okay?
Yes. Can I expand on the field goals quickly? All right. So Folks already this year missed as many kicks as he did last year. He's having a terrible season. The first kick, I'm not holding against him at all. It was 56 yards. It was at the end of the half. It was according to Jay Feely, who did a good job as the kicking analyst on the game.
All right, let's move on to the other 2.
The
other 2 that he missed.
Jay Feely said he had missed 6 straight kicks in warm-ups going to that end, so you don't need to worry about that one. The second kick, it's 49-yarder. You're supposed to make that as a pro, but also Dirk Cutter. It's 4th and 2. You can go for it there if you're a little shaky on your kicker. It's the third kick. When you are trying to make it a 1-score game.
Yeah, that was the time
it's a 31-yarder.
You have hindsight. You know that he's missed 2 already.
Well, but that's a 31-yarder. That's the one that Nick Folk has to make.
He has to make that.
And if he makes that one, then at the end of the game, I understand things could change, but they don't have to go for the end zone.
Correct.
At the end of the game,
host of things that can happen to make it less taxing.
I'm going to add another thing. Dirk Cutter, Jameis drove him down to score a touchdown to make it a 2-point game. There's 2:08 left, and you have a timeout. You can kick it away there. If you kick it away there and you force a 3 and out, you get the ball back, about 1:10 left, down 2 points.
And the defense was having success against Brady.
They did. They went onside kick. They did force the 3 and out, but because they did the onside kick, New England's in field goal range, and now you have to drive the full length of the field for a touchdown. The kicker and the coach, and I thought Jameis was not very good. So, I mean, think about this. The kicker was awful. The coach made some mistakes. Jameis, I thought, was bad. Missed some open passes, threw some really bad passes. Yet despite all that, with 3 seconds left on the clock, Tampa Bay is at the 20, down 5, with a chance to win that football game.
Yeah, and they didn't. But let's get back to the whole point of this, is that it felt, again, like New England just barely escaped. And just barely escaping doesn't get you to your 12 wins, because there are going to be games where you don't just barely escape, and that is very troublesome for this team.
And the teams they're going to be playing, I think, will be a lot better than Tampa Bay.
Well,
especially the defense.
Yes.
Cece, you mentioned Brady getting hit. He's already been sacked more this year than he was all of last year.
Yes.
Tom Brady has already been sacked more. So if people were skeptical about and right now I admit it, right now what I said about Brady going into the season, listen, 40 years old, the track record of 40-year-old quarterbacks. Right now you'd look at it and say, well, Brady's been awesome. He's the only thing holding this team together.
Yes.
That's true, but that's also worrisome because of what you said about quarterbacks getting hit, because those hits pile up week after week after week, and that age is going to...
That offensive line is going to make you right.
But how much
Your
different...
original prediction is going to be wrong, but the offensive line is going to make you right.
Would the story be different if Edelman and Gronk were in this lineup and if they were in the lineup for the first 4 or 5 games?
Well, it's always a difference, the more talent that you have, but we've been worried about Gronk all year, all right? He was nicked up earlier. We're wondering how much football does Gronk have in him. He gets injured on a Wednesday, basically in a walkthrough. Strains his quad where he's not able to play in this game. This is the team that they're going to have. We didn't think Gronk was going to play 16 games, so he's going to miss some other games. Now, Edelman's gone for the year. There's nothing they can do about that. What it also shows is that Brandon Cooks, he don't look to be as good as they thought he was going to be, and he is definitely not the Randy Moss deep threat that they thought they were getting.
And the Edelman thing, that can't be an excuse because Edelman was injured in the preseason. Nobody was changing their Super Bowl picks because of Edelman. No, Vegas wasn't changing the odds because of Edelman. So Edelman was a known quantity that he was out for the year when people still loved the Patriots.
Much better than
and CeCe's point about Gronk is correct. Like, yeah, we didn't know Gronk was going to miss Week 5 in Tampa, but we knew he was going to miss some games.
Yes.
We knew Rob Gronkowski's going to be dinged up. So listen, I want to be fair because I've been down on the Patriots. They got to win. CeCe, you say all the time, very hard to get wins in the National Football League. That was a very important win for this team, and they have the Jets next week. They're going to have 10 days off. They'll be 4-2. But this does not look like a team that can beat the best teams in the league. This does not look like a team that can win a Super Bowl.
And there are only so many times that we can continue to say, boy, the Patriots better right the ship this week, and we continue to do that. So the Cowboys play the Packers in the marquee matchup of the weekend. Aaron Rodgers, who's lights out on like 0 days rest, is coming off 9 days rest in this one. He and the Packers are ready to go, and Dak Prescott knows it and feels the pressure to outperform him.
No, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is somebody it's hard to say I need to go in there and have better stats than he does, but we know how powerful that offense is, so for us it's about worrying about what we can do on our side of the ball and making it tough on their defense and making their offense play from behind and making them one-sided. So it's important for us to get ahead and us to start scoring early to put pressure on them, but stats-wise, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers.
CC, what do the Cowboys need to do to get back on track in this one?
They got to get their offensive line, and I do have concerns. And that offensive line is very, very good, but when you start watching individual matchups, they're not dominating. And my biggest concern is Tyron Smith, the left tackle. It started about midway through the 2016 season, where he started missing a lot of practices. And it went under the radar because the team was playing so well. Dak was being protected well, and Zeke was running the ball at a phenomenal clip. But as you see it through the offseason, his back didn't get any better. Now, he peaked out in 2015. People consider him to be the best, the most dominant left tackle in pro football. Him and Joe Thomas with the Cleveland Browns. But 16, his play fell off a little bit. And in 17, people aren't watching him, but I believe that he has become part of the problem with Dallas and their inability to be able to run the ball the way they want to. You say, well, Cris, they run the ball well last week. Well, Alfred Morris had that big run. If you take that big run out of there, it's not the consistency. And why is this important? Because it helps out their defense. Their defense is undersized. It makes them play less football. They can play at a level because they're undersized, they can use their speed and quickness. So for me, watching the game, I watch how many times Dallas runs to the left, the Tyron side, and I watch how dominant, meaning how many yards per carry. Are they averaging around 4.2 to 4.5 yards a carry? And if they're able to do that, because I think now we get back to what made them successful. Nick gave the stat in week number 1. Last season, Zeke ran for 1,000 yards on first down. So if you watch this offensive line, let's start to measure how many yards they get on first down, and if they can get back to that clip, then they have a chance to be able to duplicate what they did last year.
CeCe, you mentioned Joe Thomas, and you mentioned if the running game was actually as effective as the stats made it look like due to Alfred Morris' 75-yard run. So I'm going to use a quote from Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas, a couple weeks ago, was talking to the media, and he talked about when you're evaluating the running game, you can't just look at yards per carry, because if you have a 1-yard run, a 2-yard run, a 1-yard run, then a 60-yard run, it looks great, but 3 of those runs were unsuccessful. He said, here's how we evaluate whether or not a run was successful. Did it get a first down? Did it get a touchdown? Or did it get at least 4 yards? Those are the 3 ways, and so then you have a success rate. So the point you're making is even if the numbers were good for Dallas last week, their actual success rate on rushing plays is not nearly what it had been last season.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay, no. I'm just trying to amplify it.
Yes.
So, and your point on the time of possession is it is the most important stat for the Cowboys defense. It's not turnovers forced. It's not pressures on the quarterback. How long do they have to be on the field? Because they do not have the talent to be a dominant defense if they got to play 32, 33 minutes. Last year, they were second in the NFL in time of possession. So that means the defense played the second fewest minutes of any defense. This year, they're 23rd. Like that, especially and that's just against regular people. Now you're going up against a superhuman Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to tell you one person's name, because Sean Lee's not going to be out there. and we've seen this Dallas defense really struggle without Sean Lee. DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence has to have a big game. He leads the NFL with 7.5 sacks. Aaron Rodgers has been pressured the second most of any quarterback in football. That's the old, I guess, unstoppable force against very movable object. So he should be able to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have to, because I don't think the rest of this defense matches up against the Packers offense at all.
I just wanted to bring up Dak Prescott for a second, who we heard in the soundbite there talking about Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to be on the field at the same time as Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to actually play against Aaron Rodgers, but he knows what Aaron Rodgers does, and he knows what made Aaron Rodgers the quarterback that he is. We talked a lot about which Dak Prescott we were going to see coming into the season. The guy that came off the season last year, or the guy that's had a little bit of a hard time getting his engine going this year. And there were a number of circumstances why. I think this is the kind of game, defense notwithstanding, obviously they have to play, but this is the kind of game that if Dak can come out and have a great game, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. He obviously has Aaron Rodgers in the back of his head. A lot of these young quarterbacks do. You want to come out and have a great game against the Packers with a guy like Aaron Rodgers at the helm. This is a good statement game for a young guy like Dak Prescott, so we can stop talking about, hey, is this the same team we had from last year? What are they going to have to do? I like this game for the Cowboys.
And coming off of a playoff loss to Green Bay, where they had the #1 seed, we try to act as if, and we answer the questions, Jenna, when you come into the locker room and ask us, are you concerned about Aaron Rodgers? Of course I'm concerned. The reason why is because I know, just like last year, if I give them any time late in the game, then he can drive them down the field. So there's no point in the game you relax because you know the firepower that they have. So you put extra pressure on yourself because you know the reality.
How much as a player do you take last year's playoff loss with you into this year? I mean, are they thinking about that? Are they mad about that? Do they care? It's not like it's Green Bay and the Falcons where that team just keeps... Tell me about last year's game and how it relates to where they are now.
Well, there's not a lot of carryover from season to season as far as the team, because typically you're going to have 20 to 30% new players. But when you talk about a program like Dallas, with the young players they've had who haven't had any type of playoff success, they're the #1 seed. They're almost guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers comes in there and beats them. So Green Bay and Dallas, they've had a rivalry for a long time. But now you can start to see this is a Dak-Aaron Rodgers rivalry. This could be a preview of the NFC Championship game. So there are other things that go into this game. Dallas can't afford to go to 2-3. And if Green Bay is able to get to 4-1, after a couple good wins and beating Dallas in Dallas, I mean, that's a tremendous win for them. One thing to watch in this game, both of the offensive tackles for Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, you talked about them getting pressure on the quarterback. Both those tackles will be back in this game, and this will be the first time that both of them have played at the same time together.
All right, so to Jenna, your point, Dak versus Aaron, even though they won't ever be on the field at the same time. Dak's had 2 of his best games of his career in games Aaron Rodgers has been in. He's averaging almost 9 yards per pass. That would lead the league every year. Almost 9 yards per pass in the 2 games he's played against Aaron Rodgers. He has a quarterback rating of about 110 combined in the 2 games he's played against Aaron Rodgers. And the Cowboys have scored 30 points in the regular season win, 30-plus in the playoff loss where Dak played really, really well. So I think Dak is probably more of a comfortability with Green Bay's defense, but he's not intimidated when he looks across the field and sees the best quarterback alive right now, Aaron Rodgers. Here is my concern for the Cowboys' mentality right now. This team was 13-2 last year. You talked about young players, don't know what you don't know, but this belief is easy, man. That's what they're saying to each other. You know, like this is, everyone said it was going to be tough. Dak, Zeke came in. This is it. 13-2, that's what we did in college. Like, this is fine. I'm throwing away week 17 because they didn't play anybody.
Yes.
Let's just look at the last 5 games they've played since then. A playoff game where, as CC said, you're the 1 seed. You're at home. You're probably glad Green Bay beat the Giants because the Giants are one team that's beaten you.
Yes.
And while if you're the 1 seed, you're not guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl, but you are darn near guaranteed to go to at least the conference championship game, and Green Bay beat you.
Yes.
And then this year, okay, you play a good team in Denver, and they beat you soundly. You play a good team that I didn't know was going to be a good team, but we now know is a good team in Los Angeles. You blow a double double-digit lead at home. Dallas all of a sudden saying to itself, hold on. Since that 13-2 peak, we have 2 wins against a Giants team that was a shell of itself without Eli and appears to be a mess this season. And against the Cardinals? Like, we're 2-3 since then? We could be 2-4 since then, 0-4 against good teams?
And also, don't forget, it's not measured in wins and losses, but Zeke was also suspended. This whole off, I mean, it's been a bumpy road for them.
Right.
So, you know, it's not like the wins and losses, but Zeke might have to serve that suspension. But the nervous pressure that's in Dallas with the expectations, because they look at themselves as a Super Bowl caliber team. They thought it'd be a lot easier, a lot smoother at this point in the season.
Green Bay's kind of playing with found money. They already beat Seattle. They're 3-1 through 4.
I never believed that.
Okay, all right. Well, sorry. I'm glad I brought it up at the end where you can't.
The house money. You know when it's house money? When you get the money back to the house.
When you're gambling with Chris Carter's money, that is house money.
Moving on to Cam Newton, he caused a day's worth of controversy after his demeaning comments to a female reporter on Wednesday. Now, full disclosure, it turns out that the reporter has a checkered past of insensitive social media comments of her own that were dug up during all the aftermath. None of that changes what Cam said, and he apologized in a video released on Twitter. Take a listen.
After careful thought, I understand that my word choice was extremely degrading and disrespectful to women. And to be honest, that was not my intentions. And to the young people who see this, I hope that you learn something from this as well. Don't be like me, be better than me. And to the reporters, to the journalists, to the moms, super moms, to the daughters, the sisters, and the women all around the world, I sincerely apologize and hope that you can find the kindness in your heart to forgive me.
All right, Nick, I'll start with you. You know, what was your takeaway on Cam's apology?
I think people are going to question the timing of it, and I think that's fair. Like this, ideally, this comes earlier. I don't think you can question the sincerity of it. This was, a lot of guys these days, here's how they apologize. Let me show you real quick. They take out their phone, they open a notes app, and they type, for those who were offended by what I said, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm ready to move on. Screenshot, tweet that, and that's it. This was like a produced thing. It faded out at the end. He clearly thought about what he was going to say. He didn't do simply the, if you were offended by what I said, he said, I sincerely apologize to basically the women of the world and journalists and reporters. And he seemed to own the gravity of what he said, even though in the moment he clearly didn't understand the gravity of what he said. I don't think I can think of many athlete apologies that were better than this one, and I believe him. And so Cam didn't have to apologize to me. I wasn't the aggrieved party here. He needed to apologize to the woman directly involved, and I think he's right, kind of women of the world, so to speak, because of the demeaning comments, and I thought he did that. And so I think Cam handled the apology about as well as he could have.
I agree with everything you said. I would have liked him to have mentioned her name in the apology since she really started it, as opposed to women of the world, the gender I speak
Correct.
to. I had a little bit of an issue with that. I had a little bit more of an issue with the timing, I think, than you did. It seemed to me that the apology, while very sincere, and I believe that because he didn't read a note and it wasn't in a press conference type setting, and I do believe that, it felt reactionary. It felt like the apology came after all these things happened, after there was backlash, after there was national attention, after there were women's groups who tweeted and had issues with it, after his team spoke to him, after his head coach, Ron Rivera, apologized, after one of his sponsors was pulled. I felt like all of that happened. It was an entire day, and then he apologized. And for the people that say, well, he didn't have time to apologize, and there's a lot of things that go on in your day, we go to sleep at night. Everybody looks at this before you go to sleep. You could have done it then. You could have done it in the morning. And then my second part to this was He was approached by this reporter right afterwards who brought it to his attention. So you can't say, well, he didn't realize until much later in the day what happened. It was brought to his attention just the way that this blew up right afterwards.
I don't think he thought he had done anything wrong in the moment. And just let me respond quickly.
Does the moment include when she spoke to him
correct.
afterwards?
Okay. Just let me respond quickly, and then I'll shut up on this.
No, don't.
I really think Cam, in the moment, thought he had done nothing wrong. I bet that night he thought it was, because these do exist, a faux controversy. We see fake outrage on social media all the time. This wasn't fake outrage, but we do see that. And I think Cam probably thought, man, this is not a big deal. I was joking, I was laughing, my smile, everyone always knows. And then I think, I do think the sponsor pulling affected him, but I don't think it makes it insincere. I think when he gets to the level of, man, Dannon, I'm the fake. You guys are so offended. And the other thing is this, it's possible women in his life reached out to him. I've said things on Twitter. I defended Tyreek Hill once on Twitter, the football player. My sister, who's one of the smartest people I know, called me. I didn't even know she had Twitter. Called me. Was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I defended myself. And she gave me a different perspective. And I was like, oh, maybe that tweet, to use one of Chris's phrases, missed the mark. So I do give him, I think he didn't feel this way day before yesterday, and maybe could have felt that way after thinking more, learning more, hearing from more people yesterday.
Cece, as someone who plays, and I'll ask you this, is this the situation where he got pressure from the team? Obviously, Ron Rivera was asked about it. I would imagine there are other people within the organization that spoke to him. It felt to me, and I don't know this, you played, it felt to me that he was pressured into, hey, you need to say something. And I felt that it was a little late, but you need to say something.
First of all, I don't have any problem with the timing, because I believe that it's always the right time to do the right thing. That means when you come to a realization, that's when you should apologize. He shouldn't have apologized right after the interview because he didn't realize the wrong. He shouldn't apologize that night because he didn't potentially have the backlash of his team, the organization, and the sponsors. So he didn't realize the magnitude of it. Yesterday, after practice, in talking to people, probably talking to his team of people, business advisors, and he decided, and yeah, of course he was probably forced. You let me know the last man successful that has gotten in front of a TV and said, you know something? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry I got caught. Oh, yes. That's the way it leads to. Pressure leads to apology. You don't see prideful men get in front of people and say that I'm sorry. So I'm not going to be in the business of trying to judge his intent or his heart. He did the right thing. I'm not concerned with the timing of it. I did listen to his words very, very carefully. And I have the advantage of knowing Cam since he was 17 years old. So I'm not surprised that he said this, being flip, all right? Because he can be a little flip. He can be a little charismatic. But no, his lack of understanding of the role that he plays in society, his lack of understanding that the black quarterbacks play in the National Football League and they play in society. And last week, Cam had one of the best weeks of his career because he finally made a decision about Colin Kaepernick, that I'm going to stand for Colin Kaepernick. You know the reason why I'm standing for Colin Kaepernick? Because I think what he did in trying to fight for equal rights for Americans across the board, and then he makes the lady look bad, and she's got the right to be a reporter. She's got the right to do her job. She's got the right to ask any question. So after coming off a great week where he stood for equal rights, he shot himself in the foot by not realizing, not having perspective of who he is and what his voice means in this society today. That was the oversight and my disappointment from Cam, because as a former player, I got expectations of the guys who play the game. It's their job to leave the game in better shape from when they came into the league.
But Cece, this is a guy who has 2 daughters and plenty of women in his life. If I said something on the air that was just off the mark and I didn't realize it, The minute we go to commercial break, Nick would say, you would say to me, you know what? Something. This is where I think you're. I mean, we do that to each other during the commercial break. We bring it to each other's attention.
Right,
if we mispronounce a word, if we say something that's off.
Absolutely.
And what is our reaction usually? Oh, thank you. My bad. I didn't realize it.
This, Jenna, I think, but this is where, and this is a whole different conversation about the importance of, I guess, diversity, not just of race, but of everything in the workplace. You got to keep in mind where Cam works, who he is there, and where he works. You think there were a lot of people when he came off that podium that A, didn't agree with him? Because I bet there are guys in the locker room that fully agree with him. Maybe guys on the coaching staff that agree with him. They're all wrong, but that agree with him. And B, that are in a position to where they can go tell the quarterback he done wrong.
No, but she did.
Correct.
Like, if you would,
I've done a lot of interviews, and also I talked to the person doing the interview afterwards, and they might have had a problem with something I said. I might have a problem with something they said. And I still continue to go on. And I might not have known it until I saw it printed or I saw the backlash. Why
did you need to see it printed for you to? You just said I might have known I did something wrong, but I didn't realize the magnitude of it until.
Because
if you know you did something wrong, why not? If she came up to him,
he didn't know.
You said he may not have realized. There's a difference between he may not have realized he did something wrong and he may not have realized the magnitude.
I think
of what
both were true, Jenna. I think in the moment he thought. Just because she says
that don't make it right.
You shouldn't have done this doesn't mean he instantly agrees with her.
Yes,
I believe.
And that's a bigger problem.
Oh, sure. No, listen. I said.
Story.
Let me personalize this from when we move on. I said on the air yesterday, like I don't think at the level of Cam, it leaked out of Cam, but I got a few like sexism issues I got to work through. Like, I consider myself a very progressive, forward-thinking person on equal rights, and I see myself still stubbing my toe, metaphorically, on some women's issues.
And we all do.
So I think that you can be aware of those things and still step in it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think Cam has the level of awareness that I do. And so on these types of things. So I think Cam said it. Someone said you shouldn't have said, the lady approaches him, Jordan approaches him, and he's like, what's the issue? And then some other people are like, listen, man, people are mad on the internet. Okay, people are always mad at me on the internet. And then the next morning, wait, the team released a statement? What? Why is my mom calling me? Why is my agent says Dannon pulled out? And so, it did. So that's where I think the evolution of the timeline at least makes some sense. It's not ideal. The ideal would have been right when he said it. He should have been like, oh my gosh, why'd I do that?
You know, it's very possible that's exactly what happened. And if that is exactly what happened, then there is a huge issue in the NFL. The fact that he can go 24 hours and it takes all these people letting him know that laughing at a woman because she asked a football question isn't funny. So that's a different conversation entirely. We now welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ and Fox NFL analyst David Deal. David, how are you?
I am unbelievable. Unbelievable. You get the traffic and the crowd and the energy in New York City early in the morning. And what better way to start a Friday than talking about football here?
The last time I saw you was in the locker room with the Giants. I'm sure I was asking you some crazy important question, and you were probably like, that is some kind of question, Jenna. I never heard a question like that before. It's great to see you.
It's great
you spent your entire season with the Giants.
Yeah.
How rare is that today to spend your whole career with one team?
I mean, for me, it was a blessing for me because I knew after dealing with the loss of my father my rookie year, the way the Mara family handled it, the Giants family handled it, I didn't want to be anything other than a Giant. So my entire 11 seasons, never went to free agency, never tested the market.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a Giant for life.
Yeah. All right.
Now you're on national TV wearing a Breitling, so it worked out pretty well.
It worked out pretty
I'm surprised you saw that, the Breitling over there.
All right, we're going to talk about your former team here at the New York Giants. They face the LA Chargers this weekend in a matchup of winless teams. Woohoo! 0-4. That's not great. Longtime Giants vet Jason Pierre-Paul discussed some of the issues facing the team. Take a listen.
Me personally, I don't think when other team play the New York Giants, I don't think they don't fear us, And what we put on film is what we put on film, and the only way to change that is going out and winning the game.
All right, David, let me start with you. First of all, what did he mean by what we put on film is what we put on film? And then, secondly, what's wrong with the Giants this season?
The eye in the sky does not lie is what he means about that. What you put on film, what people think about you as a football team won't change until you change it with your actions and not what you say. So for this Giants football team, we saw a defense that continues to struggle covering running backs and tight ends. That struggled in that game. Cam Brate was unbelievable, and it wasn't just on Darian Thompson. He was doing it against Landon Collins. The running game, ineffective. We all know that Eli Manning is at his best when he can take those play-action shots, and they can control the time of possession to use their defense as a strength. So when those two things don't coincide with each other, and your asset on the special teams, Brad Wing, puts up two terrible punts back-to-back weeks, that's where you run into these problems as a football team. So you may have these star players. You may have gotten Brandon Marshall and all these guys. But if you can't do the basics, the fundamentals, the techniques, the mental errors that they're having as a football team, it doesn't matter who you have on the field.
We've spent a ton of time talking about the offense with the Giants.
Yeah.
Odell's out in week 1, the offense non-existent. He's hampered in week 2. The offense isn't much better, and we see the offensive line get destroyed. Then in week 3, we talk about Brad Wing shanking a punt that allows Philly to get 61-yard field goal. The end of the game in week 4 was a moment of clarity for me to go back and let's look at some of these numbers about the defense.
Okay.
And the defense, end of the game in week 4, you have a lead. Yeah. Just stop Jameis Winston from driving the field. You get your first win. And then they couldn't. They lose. And then I look at it. This Giants defense has been outright bad.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the one unchanging variable from last season for this team is we know we still have Landon Collins. We still have Olivier Vernon. We still have JPP. We still have DRC. We have these guys. The defense just hasn't played well, and that's one I can't figure out.
Well, actually, you think about it. Number one, stopping the run. They're going from first to almost last in the league. And I hate when people use the cliche, well, in the first 3 weeks, they're out on the field for 20 minutes. Teams were converting first downs on third in the first game, the second game, and the third and fourth early in those games in the first quarter. So to use the cliche, they've been on the field too long, that you can't use that. That's a BS excuse for the way that they're playing. The run fits, lane discipline. I mean, Snacks Harrison is getting beat one-on-one on zone stretches. Defensively, the linebacker, we saw Goodson step in, but we saw when he's not in that lineup playing that run-stuffing linebacker, Munson was a liability. And Eli Apple, every quarterback, the first thing they're doing, they're walking to this game, we're going to 24. We're going to go to him until he stops us.
I'm going to talk about the subject that gets more attention than the quarterback, the D-line, the safeties, Brandon Marshall.
OBJ.
I'm going to talk about the kid with the yellow hair. Now, you had the ability, and it's to be able to play with one organization that was a family.
Yep.
The Maras, I tell these people all the time, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible ownership. How they've been loyal to the players on and off the field, supportive of them in a lot of different ways that the public doesn't know.
No question.
You've played with a lot of superstars that the organization handled either through Tom Coughlin or the Mara family. They handled those superstars because the Giants, my first game against the Giants was 1987. And what JPP said is true. We were afraid of the Giants. They had Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks. Like, they had some ball players that their physicality was the first thing that they put on you when the whistle blew. They don't have that anymore. But all the conversation gets to the kid. Do you think that the Giants are handling OBJ in his career the right way? And if they're not, what do you suggest that they should be doing with him in year 4 to help him reach his full potential the way they've supported the other superstar players that they've had play for the G-Men?
And you said it, throughout my 11 years, I played with the Plaxico Burrises. I played with the Jeremy Shockeys. I played with the guys that are coming into the huddle screaming if they don't get the ball and are causing that distraction. But you know that when it comes to this team and the New York Giants, those Super Bowls were all won interiorly by the O-line and the D-line, setting the tempo up front and physically dominating teams and doing it in the fourth quarter. In regards to Odell Beckham Jr., You say that this is a different season for you. You're going to be more mature. All the boat stuff and all the distractions are out of the way. Well, you haven't showed anybody that. You didn't come to OTAs. You barely participated in minicamp. And sure enough, the minute that you get hurt during the season, you come back, and what do? You're making it about yourself and not the football team. And we all know the energy and the swag that he brings to this football team, the way that he did it in Tampa Bay and in Philadelphia.
So you're there at practice, and you see the thing. So that's true.
That it works, without a doubt. He's one of the hardest working guys, finishing routes to the end zone, running with the football, tucking it away. He does all of those things. But the magnitude of when John Mara has to pull you in his office and say that he's going to deal with it interiorly, that's something that raises a lot of red flags.
Now you played 11 years.
A young player who's looking for a contract from this organization.
You played 11 years. Besides the tragedy you mentioned in your family, how many times did you go into the owner's office?
Other than me just walking in asking for John Mara's
called in there.
Never. And that's the one great thing that I always loved about Coach Coughlin. Good, bad, and different. You knew exactly where you stood with him. You got a problem with me? My door's always open. Not a lot of people went up there to that open door to yell at Coach Coughlin, did they?
Let me just follow up with a quick question here.
Yeah.
When he has to be called into the owner's office, though, that's partially an Odell problem.
Yep.
Is that not also partially a Ben McAdoo problem?
Absolutely. Because obviously right now with the way that things are handled and were addressed out on the football field, I didn't like the fact that Coach McAdoo addressed Eli Manning for not getting a playoff in the 2 minutes and at the end when you're trying to score a play, and then you don't address something like that after the Philadelphia.
You're right, Jenna.
If you're going to treat your star players all the same, you do it at both levels. And like I said, you saw that this was something brewing, that at some point you knew that it was going to come to the ownership. The more important thing is that we'll see how it's handled throughout the rest of the season, because if it is not handled that way and he's a disruption, you and I both know that's when it becomes a cancer to your football team and it starts bringing everybody else down.
I feel, listen, you are now Jenna's favorite guest.
Idea.
You have echoed all of her points.
I just want to say, and then we're going to break immediately, I've been out on an island. I thought Odell was a distraction
out on
because
an island
of all
without
that
a boat.
stuff.
Now you're riding his back
I thought
to shore.
Eli shouldn't have been called out. I thought there's no reason for him to have been
not to mention
called into the owners. I thought all of those same things I agreed with.
And my whole thing was, how can you mark your spot on the field when you're down 14-7 and you're on the road?
Commercial break.
You can never come back on the show.
David,
get him out of here.
Every segment, every day, you are welcome back. Smartest man we've ever had on the
Get him out of here.
Literally made all my points.
Overrated.
Sunday Night Football, Chiefs, Texans, Deshaun Watson trying to duplicate his strong performance against the Titans. Nick, what do you expect from Watson against your Kansas City Chiefs?
I think this is going to be a bit of a welcome to the NFL game for Deshaun Watson. It's on national television. It's after a game where, they played the Titans. It was a 1 p.m. start. There were 11 other games on at the same time, and the defense absolutely dominated Tennessee. In the second half, you go against Matt Castle. Perfect storm. Now you're up against the best team in the NFL. It's the big game of the week on Sunday Night Football, and this Chiefs defense has been extraordinary. They've forced 6 turnovers already this season to the only one Kansas City has suffered itself. So I think it's a tough game for Deshaun Watson. If the Texans win this game, CC, then you have to start looking at them as, wow, is this a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Those are two extremes. You're concerned for him, but if they win the game...
Yeah, but I don't think they can win it. I don't think they can win it.
Didn't he play against a team named New England?
New England's not nearly as good as Kansas City.
Okay, just stop. Didn't he play in Gillette, right?
Gillette.
Where no rookies have had success? Don't you think that moment was a lot bigger than this moment against Kansas City, going against Tom Brady in a primetime game?
I think that was a nothing. There was no expectation going into that game. They're double.
Don't tell me he was playing with house money.
I'm not going to say
that. Was it a parlay, Nick?
They're double-digit underdogs. That doesn't apply here, Jenna. They're double-digit underdogs. It's his first start. There's so many factors of that.
I'm least concerned about him with Kansas City than I was in the New England game.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's got 2 games under his belt where I've seen him perform at such a high level. It's not by accident. All right? He's a good player, and he will play good at home, on the road. He's a good player. Give him credit for being good. And what he showed against New England was impressive.
Cece, I think he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think Deshaun Watson is potentially going to be a great player. I think he's playing a very good defense, the best defense that he has faced since he became the starter.
Who did Kansas City play last week?
Kansas City last week, they won. Oh, they played Washington.
Okay. Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins played well against that defense, didn't he?
He did. He
okay.
Okay. Listen.
Okay.
Hey, listen, Cece. Let's put some. The game's a pick 'em. We can put some money on the wood. I can leave the bookie out of it this week.
We're moving on.
Okay, sorry.
Until Nick can explain a pick 'em.
Just pick the winner. There's no point spread, Jenna.
Okay. As if that's the thing that I wasn't understanding.
Jenna.
That was the last part. Moving on, a showdown between a pair of 3-1 teams. The Lions taking on the Panthers. Cam Newton coming off a strong performance against the Patriots, but one might call it a very distracting week. Nick, who would you rather have as your quarterback, Stafford or Newton?
Oh, I mean, I know I'm going to be. You talk about you being on an island. I'm the man on an island here. I think Cam Newton's markedly better than Matt Stafford and has been every year of his career except for last year. I think the Panthers are a better team in this one as well. One stat that I looked up last night that is unbelievable. The Lions have forced 11 turnovers this season.
Yes.
That defense has forced almost 3 turnovers a game this year.
Great defensive coordinator, Terrell Austin. He never gets any type of credit. They got a very good defense.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the defense is very good. I don't think you can expect 2-3 turnovers a game. If the Panthers can not turn the ball over, CC, I like the Panthers' ability to go into Detroit to win this game.
I think Detroit's one of the most underrated teams. I love Jim Caldwell as a coach. He only gets good results. He helps develop quarterbacks. People forget he was the offensive coordinator late in the season. Baltimore he took over the play calling duties when Baltimore went to the Super Bowl and Ray Lewis won his last Super Bowl. Jim Caldwell was responsible for that. I mentioned their defensive coordinator, got good defensive personnel, and I have more faith in Stafford than I do Cam. And yes, I do believe certain things are become a distraction, and this will have been a long week for Cam Newton.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say we get mocked for throwing words around like distraction all the time.
Well, every week we can't use distraction.
Correct.
And
this one brought national headlines.
And this is the 5th week, and we've used it.
Here's my barometer for whether something's a distraction. If it's within the first 5 or 6 stories at the Today Show, it's going to be a distraction for you on your team. And this was something that everybody was talking about. I feel like it might affect him. I'm sorry. I know he's your guy.
Listen,
I feel like it might affect
we're
him
just here for commentary. There's no hard feelings here. And I'm glad that Monday morning I'm going to be the one person at this desk that was right about that game.
We're on so many islands. It's like the Caribbean. We're sitting out here. Okay, next up, the surprise of the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams face off with the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. Jared Goff and the Rams have been the highest scoring offense in the NFL. We were surprised a couple weeks ago. We're not surprised anymore. CC, you've been all over the Seahawks team for struggling on the road. Can they figure it out this weekend?
No, I don't think so. They don't match up well against the Rams. Not only this year, the last several years. I think they've lost 3 times in a row to the Rams, either in St. Louis.
3 times in a row in St. Louis, and 3 of the last 4 overall.
Yes. So
Los Angeles, St. Louis, wherever the hell they play.
So they've matched up well with them. They're not intimidated, because that's one thing Seattle can do, because they're so physical defensively, they can be intimidating. The Rams are used to seeing them. They know their personnel. They know what they like to do, and they're able to match their intensity. Look for the defensive front of the Rams to destroy Seattle's offensive line. Now, if you think Seattle's offensive line is bad at home, wait till you see them on the road. They're really, really bad. Russell Wilson, long day. Rams get another impressive win. And besides Detroit, the Rams, probably the 2nd most underrated team in the NFL.
I understand Seattle's not very good on the road. I understand that the Rams have been one of the surprises of the season. I also understand the Rams, no team, and this is an amazing stat, no team has more plays of 20-plus yards this year than the Los Angeles Rams. Here's the sneaky thing about the Rams people aren't talking about, because the offense has been so good. The defense has been bad the last 3 weeks. They're giving up 32 points a game since week 1. Week 1, they mollywopped the Colts. And so if you throw that one out, that Seattle's offense, on the other hand, has had its best 2 games the last 2 weeks. This is a game, if Los Angeles wins, they're 4-1, CC. Yes. Seattle's 2-3. Los Angeles will have the first of the head-to-head victories. This is such a big game for Seattle. This is a game where I think the Rams come back down to earth a bit, and Seattle gets the rare road win against the Rams, a place, like you were saying, they couldn't win even when they were St. Louis and they were a 4-12 team.
This is your pick 'em?
No, it's not a pick 'em, Jenna.
No,
Gets him so mad. It gets him stuck up.
It doesn't get me mad. I am embarrassed for you.
Yeah, for me.
That's all.
He's embarrassed for me.
That's all.
He's I feel your pain. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.